The day Grayson got engaged to his beloved, he deliberately chose the day I went to study in Hong Kong City. He said to his fiancée, "Natalie is naughty. You are gentle. From now on, let her stay in Hong Kong City and not come back." Friends were all very worried, fearing that if I knew, I would rush back to Beijing overnight and cry and make a fuss. But they didn't know that I wouldn't cry or go back. Before going to Hong Kong City, I agreed to someone's marriage proposal. In half a month, I will get married. Before the wedding, I sent back all the gifts Grayson had given me in the past 10 years to Beijing, including that ring that I once cherished like a treasure. The last time I confessed to Grayson, I made myself quite embarrassed. There were many people sitting in the box. But there was a deathly silence. No one spoke. After several minutes, Serena sitting beside him got up and smoothed things over. "Okay, Grayson. If you do this, it will make Natalie so embarrassed. She is still a child." Someone in the corner sneered, "A 21-year-old child." Laughter rose one after another and gradually became continuous. I stubbornly stood where I was and refused to leave in embarrassment. Just my gaze at Grayson gradually blurred. "Natalie, how harsh do I have to make my words for you to understand?" Grayson tapped off the ash and stood up. "I clearly rejected you since you were 16. I couldn't help but choke up, but when I had puppy love back then, you were clearly very angry. That's because you are the adopted daughter of the Grayson family. If you take a wrong step, it will only lose the face of the Grayson family. What about the kiss on my 18th birthday?" A very faint disgust flashed in Grayson's eyes as he looked at me. "Natalie, you were drunk that night and made a huge mess. I just wanted to end the farce as soon as possible." I suddenly laughed. But as I laughed, tears fell even more fiercely. "Grayson, you had 4 girlfriends. But every time, as long as I cried and made a fuss, you would break up with them. For so many years, dare you say you don't like me at all?" "That's because I haven't met a woman I truly like." Grayson reached out and pulled Serena into his arms. "Natalie, listen carefully. I will only say these words for the last time. I like Serena. I will marry her. Your little tricks before won't work this time." Serena's face was full of shyness and joy, looking at him lovingly. "Grayson." Grayson didn't hesitate and kissed her. Serena put her arms around his neck and responded on tiptoe. They kissed passionately and intensely, as if no one else was around. But at that moment, what I thought of was that kiss on my 18th birthday. It was also so affectionate and long, so that I didn't wake up from that dream for 4 years. Foolishly thinking that he actually liked me, Grayson moved out of the old house of the Grayson family. He lived with Serena. On the day he moved out, I was busy with my graduation defense at school. Choosing such a day was probably to prevent me from making trouble. But this time, I didn't do as I did before. Immediately run to find Grayson and cry and make a fuss. Just after a slight ripple in my heart, I immediately shook my head and put all this behind me. In the evening, I had a graduation dinner with several classmates I got along well with. When I went to the restroom on the way, I met Serena. "Natalie, Grayson is also here. Are you going over?" I shook my head. "I have an appointment with my classmates. I won't go." Serena suddenly had red eyes. "Natalie, I come from a humble background. Grayson's father and Grayson's mother didn't like me in the first place. Can you stop speaking ill of me in front of them?" I was surprised and shocked. "Miss Serena, I have never mentioned you in front of the elders." Serena gave a sad smile. "I know you have liked Grayson for many years. I can understand if you can't accept me being with him for the time being. But Natalie, we are all girls. Isn't it better to be kind in doing things and being a person? My temperament is like my mother's. Straightforward and not good at playing tricks." Hearing this, I immediately became anxious. "Serena, don't talk nonsense and slander me here." Before I could finish speaking, Serena's legs suddenly went limp and she knelt down directly. "Natalie, I beg you." I was startled and wanted to pull her up. But before I could touch her, she fell heavily to the ground. "Natalie, what are you doing?" When Grayson's furious voice rang out, an extremely strong force also struck. I was pushed away hard. My knee just hit the edge of the wall. The pain was piercing. Grayson, don't misunderstand. Natalie didn't mean it. You still defend her. I have seen enough of her tricks like this since she was a child. Grayson bent down and picked up Serena. He looked at me coldly. There was fury in his eyes. Natalie, apologize. Grayson. Shut up. Apologize. Serena was nestled in his arms. Her crying was very soft and pitiful. My knee was bleeding. Blood meandered down my calf to my ankle. Those two glaring bloodlines. But Grayson didn't seem to see it at all. The way he looked at me was as if I was a heinous villain. I suddenly laughed at myself. I didn't want to argue a word anymore. I apologize. Grayson seemed to be slightly stunned. But then the hostility in his eyes deepened. Not enough. I stood up straight and bowed deeply. Is this okay? Serena looked at me. The corner of her mouth curved slightly. But soon she sobbed and looked at Grayson, softly persuading. Forget it, Grayson. How can I bear it? Grayson was instantly distressed. Natalie, I said that Serena is different from others. If you bully her, it won't make me break up with her. It will only make me love her more and despise you more. He held Serena and turned to leave. I stood there alone for a very long time. The wound on my knee was very painful, but my heart was very empty and light. I know. At this moment, those so-called obsessions and infatuations all turned into dust. Vanished. That night, Serena posted 3 moments in a row. They were all screenshotted and sent to me by people with ulterior motives in the circle. Especially Grayson's replay was especially circled. I know that they privately wanted to see me make a fool of myself. In the past, I always rushed to find Grayson and cry and make a fuss as soon as I got hot-headed. He was impatient but always compromised every time. This undoubtedly gave me the illusion that he cared about me. And it also made me more courageous. But this time, I ignored it. Instead, I dialed a phone number from 7 days ago. Aunt Jo, I am Natalie. I have considered the matter you mentioned that day. When I was 7 years old, my parents died unexpectedly. Grayson's father had a good relationship with my father and took the initiative to take me in. And Aunt Jo was my mother's best friend when she was young. But later, she eloped with her lover and lost contact. When she finally settled down in Hong Kong City after half a lifetime of wandering, my parents were already gone. Aunt Jo wanted me to live in Hong Kong City. She also wanted to fulfill the promise she made with my mother when they were young. Let me marry into the Owen family in Hong Kong City and be her daughter-in-law. 7 days ago, I didn't agree. But I was afraid of hurting her heart. I just said that I would consider it. But tonight, I suddenly let go of these years of obsession. Unrequited love is so stupid and ridiculous. I don't want to be the laughing stock in the circle anymore. Half a year ago, Grayson arranged for me to continue studying in Hong Kong City. At that time, I didn't want to and cried bitterly several times. But he never relented. Now I think this is a good opportunity. Perhaps it is the arrangement of fate. On the other end of the phone, Aunt Jo laughed very happily. Natalie, your brother Owen is waiting for you to nod. He is about to fly to Beijing and propose to you. I held the phone. Somehow I felt a little hot on my face, but the laughter coming from my ear made me feel very dazed. The person I have lived with for 15 years and liked for 7 years. It turns out that it only takes 7 days to completely let go. The day Grayson and Serena got engaged, he deliberately chose the day I went to Hong Kong City. So not many people came to see me off. When I turned on my phone after getting off the plane, messages kept coming in. More than half of them were related to Grayson and Serena's engagement. I just laughed it off. I deleted and blocked the contact information of those people. Before coming to Hong Kong City, I met Owen. I didn't want any complications or publicity. Owen respected my wishes. He proposed. We exchanged rings. We got engaged in such a low-key way. But in my account, there was a betrothal gift of 100 million. On my middle finger, there was a plain ring. When I was about to get on the car to pick me up from the Owen family, my phone suddenly rang. It was called by Hope, Grayson's cousin. Natalie, my brother's engagement ceremony is about to start. Where are you? I just arrived in Hong Kong City. Then come back quickly. If you come back now, it's still in time. Come back for what? I asked calmly. Hope was stunned for a moment. Natalie, are you so sad that you've gone crazy? If you don't come back and cry and make a fuss, my brother will really belong to someone else. Why should I come back and cry and make a fuss? Isn't this your brother's happy event? Natalie? Hope's voice suddenly rose. Are you crazy? I was about to hang up when the voice in my ear suddenly became Serena's. Natalie, won't you come to attend my and Grayson's engagement ceremony? Anyway, Grayson regards you as a younger sister. Then I am your sister-in-law. I really want to get your blessing. I looked at Owen not far away. He stood by the car. Tall and straight. His eyes were gentle. My heart suddenly calmed down. Okay, then I wish you a long life together and be locked together forever. Grayson and several friends were standing in the garden smoking. However, from time to time, he would look at Hope and the others not far away. He knew that these people were tipping off Natalie again. Just like countless times before. Whenever there was a female by his side, those women would immediately tell Natalie. Then Natalie would run to him and cry and make a fuss. He hated women doing this the most and found it annoying. So he dumped those female companions. And this time, it was probably the same. So he deliberately chose the day when Natalie went to Hong Kong City. It's just a bit unfortunate. The auspicious time for the engagement ceremony calculated is at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Grayson was quite headache. After all, if Natalie got the news there and took a plane back immediately, it would just be in time for the start of the engagement ceremony. Grayson, what if Natalie runs back and makes a fuss with you? Yes. If you get engaged to someone else, I think she will go crazy. But I think she has been quite peaceful recently. You and Serena are so close. She didn't make any movement at all. If it were before, she would have cried so much that it would flood. The cigarette between Grayson's fingers had a long section of ash. He forgot to tap it off. What was on his mind were these last two sentences from his friend. Natalie has indeed been very quiet recently. So quiet that it's a bit abnormal. But based on his understanding of her, she is definitely not this kind of person. Since childhood, he has rejected her so many times. But she is always more courageous after setbacks and has never thought of giving up. Now that she is a bit older, she is more patient than when she was a child. Grayson suddenly thought of something. He sneered softly and extinguished the cigarette butt. Just wait and see. She is not a peaceful person. Grayson, do you mean Natalie will come back and make trouble? Grayson didn't answer. But in his heart, he was extremely certain. The little girl has been in love since she was young. When she was a teenager, she read romance novels so much that she was in a daze. Those absurd tricks were always played on him all day long. Naturally, he knew. These days of peace are just a way of retreating to advance. He can guarantee that at the latest, when the engagement ceremony begins, Natalie will appear. You tell the security later and keep a close eye on it. Grayson looked at his watch and said, don't let any irrelevant people come in and make trouble. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Hope running over in a long skirt. Cousin, it's Natalie. Natalie is here. The car has arrived outside. Grayson was inexplicably happy for a moment, but then his face darkened. Nonsense. I think she just doesn't know how to repent. Brother, what should we do now? If she makes trouble, our Grayson family will lose face. Grayson's face was cold as he turned and strode outside. I'll go and see what tricks she can play. A group of people followed Grayson and walked outside. But just as they left the garden, Serena softly called out to him. Grayson. Serena was wearing a very beautiful silk satin dress. Her hair was beautifully braided and her makeup was very light. The engagement ceremony is at 6 o'clock. There are still a few hours. Serena was anxious inside, but she didn't show it at all on her face. Why are you here? Grayson stopped. His gaze fell on Serena's face. Serena is very beautiful. She is the kind of beauty that easily makes men feel protective. Different from Natalie's naughtiness. Because of her humble background, Serena's temperament is a bit timid. She always speaks softly. During the time when he met Serena, he was having a headache because of Natalie. He was easily attracted by Serena's gentleness and calmness. Not to mention, unlike the previous few female companions who took the initiative to approach him, his acquaintance with Serena originated from a heroic rescue. Men always have such a heroic complex. So his feelings for Serena are very different from those of the previous few who were just for fun. I heard that Natalie is back. Before Serena finished speaking, her eyes were already red. I'm a little worried. Serena bit her lip and lowered her head. Grayson, will we be unable to complete the engagement ceremony today? What are you thinking? Grayson raised his hand and put it on Serena's shoulder, patting it gently. Don't worry. I'll deal with it now. But Serena reached out and pulled Grayson's sleeve. Grayson, I'm afraid. I'm afraid you will leave with her. Tears fell from Serena's eyes. She was delicate and petite, standing there as if she was about to break. How could it be, Sister Serena? My brother doesn't like Natalie. Hope's smile in her eyes was full of joy. She is domineering and naughty. She cries and makes a scene whenever she wants. My brother is so annoyed by her. How could he leave with her? She really doesn't like Natalie. Since Natalie was adopted by the Grayson family, her uncle and aunt who originally loved her very much put Natalie ahead of her. Although the implication is that Natalie is an adopted daughter, for the sake of reputation and face, the Grayson family must be doubly good to her. But Hope still hates Natalie very much. So over the years, what she likes to do most is to see Natalie lose face and make a fool of herself. Now that Natalie is sent to study in Hong Kong City, not many people in the Grayson family see her off. Even half a month ago, all her luggage was packed and sent to Hong Kong City first. It seems as if they are afraid that Natalie will cling on and not leave. Hope is extremely happy now. Anyway, she supports whoever becomes her cousin's wife as long as it's not Natalie. Grayson suddenly looked at Hope. Didn't you always have a good relationship with Natalie? How could I have a good relationship with her? I hate her to death. Now that everything is settled, Hope doesn't want to pretend at all. In the past, she deliberately got close to Natalie. It was just to gain her trust and make her obediently listen to her. To make a fuss and do all kinds of annoying things. Now that there is no need to pretend, it's really refreshing. So Hope didn't notice the slightly changed expression on Grayson's face. She was still talking on her own. Brother, how about this? You stay with sister-in-law. I'll go and send Natalie away. Don't worry. I will definitely make her lose face badly. How are you going to make her lose face? Have the bodyguards throw her out. When others are engaged, she comes to make trouble. If it spreads out, even her parents' coffins won't be able to hold down. Grayson suddenly raised his hand. When the crisp slap sounded, everyone was stunned. Especially Serena. She frowned. Looking at Grayson's eyes, it gradually became gloomy. Brother, why did you hit me? Hope immediately covered her face and cried loudly in grievance. Natalie is nominally my sister after all. You should also call her sister. Grayson's face was indescribably ugly. She has been the adopted daughter of the Grayson family for more than 10 years. Hope, when you humiliate her, is the Grayson family glorious? Why are you speaking for her? You clearly hate her, don't you? Hope cried extremely aggrieved. If it weren't for you hating her, how would we dare to say that? Grayson stood there and didn't speak for a long time. Does he really hate Natalie as they said? But obviously, when Natalie first arrived at the Grayson family, their relationship was the best. When Natalie was injured, it was he who coaxed her not to cry and carried her home on his back. When Natalie was bullied at school, it was he who arrived at the first time and supported her. Even when she had her first period, it was he who bought sanitary napkins for her. Natalie has depended on him since she was a child. When she grew up, her possessiveness towards him was extremely strong. At first, he really liked Natalie clinging to him. When did it change? Grayson's heart was suddenly a little confused. And Serena's crying suddenly brought his thoughts back to reality. Yes, it was Natalie who changed first. When she grew up, because of the indulgence of the Grayson family, Her temperament was too naughty, willful, and domineering. She didn't allow him to get close to any opposite sex. She would be jealous and cry at every turn. So, he became more and more annoyed and distanced himself from her. Even against her begging and crying, he insisted on sending her alone to study in Hong Kong City. He did this. It was just to make Natalie more sensible and mature. When she learned to be good, he would naturally go and pick her up. After all these years of affection between them, how could he really bear to leave her alone in a strange city? But now it seems she still hasn't learned her lesson. On such a happy day, she continues to be willful. She really has the ability. As soon as she arrives, she has made the Grayson family a mess. Grayson reached out and pulled Serena into his arms. Go and wash your face first. Then let the makeup artist do your makeup again. After I deal with Natalie's matter, I'll come to you. The engagement ceremony will start on time. Don't worry. Grayson wiped away Serena's tears and then left. Serena stood where she was, looking at Grayson's receding back. Somehow, there was still an indescribable uneasiness in her heart. What Hope questioned just now made a lot of sense. Everyone knows that he hates Natalie so much. But because of a few words from Hope, he slapped his cousin. Does he really hate Natalie? Or, in fact, deep down in his heart, is Natalie still different after all? When Grayson reached the gate, he didn't see Natalie. But her pink Mini was quietly parked there. Only her best friend Cherry was standing by the car. Grayson's steps suddenly stopped. His heart seemed to be gently pulled by something and sank slightly. Only then did he remember. Natalie gave this car to Cherry before leaving Beijing. When Cherry saw him, she immediately walked over. Grayson saw that she was holding a red envelope in her hand. There was no expression on Cherry's face. She got straight to the point. Natalie asked me to give you and Serena a red envelope. Grayson didn't reach out to take it. Cherry frowned slightly. There is another thing. You say? Natalie left in a hurry at that time, and there was never a chance to see you. I called you several times, but you didn't answer, so I haven't been able to ask you to return it. When you had your birthday before, she gave you an antique brooch. That was the token of love that her mother gave to her father. Cherry smiled a little mockingly. Natalie said that this brooch is for her future husband. Now it's too inappropriate to leave it with you. Mr. Grayson, can you give me the brooch? When I go to Hong Kong City to see Natalie, I will bring it to her. Grayson suddenly lowered his eyes. His gaze fell on the piece of lustrous blue on his chest. When he got up and changed clothes this morning, for some reason he chose this sapphire brooch. In fact, it doesn't match his dress very well. But he didn't change it. But at this moment, looking at this brooch again, it only felt glaring. For the future husband? For some reason, Grayson just thought that Natalie might get married in the future, have a husband who shares the same bed. There was a discomfort surging in his heart. She likes him so much. How could she marry another man? Now she didn't come herself. Let Cherry come to ask for the brooch. That's clever. After all, he was really disturbed by her action. Mr. Grayson? You go and tell Natalie. There is no reason to take back a gift that has been given. Of course, if she is determined to have it, then let her come and talk to me herself. After Grayson finished speaking, he was about to turn and leave. But Cherry hurriedly called out to him. Mr. Grayson, please wait a moment. I will let Natalie talk to you in person right now. Joke. Natalie is about to get married. How can such a brooch with special important meaning stay with another man? Natalie has reminded her several times. Let her be sure to bring the brooch when she goes to attend her wedding, so that on the wedding day, she can personally wear it on her husband's chest. Cherry has been displeased with Grayson for a long time. But Natalie is stubborn and a fool. After being strung along by someone for so many years and then being dumped, Cherry was so angry that she wanted to slap Grayson to death just thinking about it. Fortunately, now she finally comes to her senses. And found such a good man. Cherry is truly happy for her from the bottom of her heart. This trip must fulfill the mission. When I received a call from Cherry, the car was almost reaching the Owen family. Cherry, what's wrong? Natalie, I went to ask Grayson for the brooch as you said. But he won't give it to me. He also said that if you really want it, let you talk to him yourself. I subconsciously glanced at Owen beside me. Somehow I felt a little guilty. He and I are still very unfamiliar. Even though he seems polite, gentle and mild. But the aura around him is still so strong that it cannot be ignored. Just now he answered a work call in the car. He switched between English, French and Cantonese skillfully. Gave orders neatly. De naturao erofia superior. Made me look naive and inexperienced. Actually, I am not a quiet person. But in front of Owen, I inexplicably became ladylike. Before I could talk to Cherry, Grayson's voice on the other end of the phone had already changed. Natalie, do you want the brooch or are you deliberately making trouble? I was stunned for a moment and laughed angrily. If you want to disrupt my and Serena's engagement ceremony, then I advise you not to waste your efforts. If you want the brooch, then take it back in the same way as you gave it to me. After all, such a valuable thing can't be given through someone else. I took a deep breath and tried to make my tone as calm as possible. Cherry is my best friend. Just give it to her. I will bear all the consequences. If you want the brooch, then take it back in the same way as you gave it to me. After all, such a valuable thing can't be given through someone else. I was both angry and ashamed and indignant. Gradually, my face flushed red. How did I give him that brooch? It was on the night of my 18th birthday. Both Grayson and I were drunk. In my bedroom on the 3rd floor of the old house of the Grayson family. He pressed me against the back of the door and kissed me deeply. By the end of the kiss, I could hardly stand. And he was clearly very aroused. But in the end, he still stopped with restraint. When he was about to leave, I called out to him. Put that brooch in his hand. I told him the meaning of this brooch. He didn't say anything but accepted it. That's why I thought he tacitly agreed and accepted my love. These years have been like a terrible dream. Now that I have woken up from the dream, I just want to completely cut off everything from the past. I thought Grayson would be more than happy. He would return the brooch to me like throwing away garbage. But I never expected him to say that. It was only at this time that I realized belatedly. The absurdity of youth always has to pay a price one day. If this brooch didn't have that meaning, I wouldn't take it back at all. But now I am going to get married. Leaving the brooch with Grayson is unfair to Owen. Is something wrong? Owen's voice suddenly rang out. I subconsciously looked up. My gaze crashed directly into his deep eyes. The emotion in my heart was indescribably embarrassing. I didn't want to hide it. But because of our unfamiliarity now, it was a bit hard to speak. Nothing. In the end, I still shook my head. Thinking in my heart that even if I ask Grayson's father for help, I also have to get the thing back. Having made up my mind, I gradually relaxed. It's really nothing. It's just a small matter at Grayson's father's house. I pretended to be relaxed and smiled at Owen. I can handle it. Owen didn't ask any more questions. Just nodded lightly. Okay, if there is something difficult, Natalie. You can always find me. After all, you are my fiancée now. He naturally called me like Aunt Jo. Although it wasn't the first time, my earlobes were still a little red, especially when I heard him say the word fiancé. Even the back of my neck became hot. I am engaged. In half a month, I will marry him. The sour and astringent tastes in my heart were intertwined. Vaguely, there seemed to be a very faint longing and joy. I didn't dare to look at him. I took a quick glance at him and then nodded slightly and said, Owen didn't say any more. When the car arrived at the Owen family, the car door opened and he got out of the car first. Then he turned around and helped me. I saw the engagement ring on his middle finger. Since he put it on that day, he seems to have never taken it off again. Owen helped me get out of the car. After I got out of the car, he didn't let go. Instead, he naturally held my hand. At first, I was a little uncomfortable, but his palm was warm and dry. The fingers holding mine were long and powerful. My heart suddenly calmed down. As if we should be like this. From afar, Aunt Jo saw us walking hand in hand. She immediately smiled with relief. Before we got close, Aunt Jo quickly walked over. She hugged me tightly and burst into tears. Natalie, you are so much like your mother when she was young. My tears burst out instantly. She smelled very good. It was the same as the almost blurred memory of my mother's smell. Owen stood aside, shaking his head helplessly. He took out a tissue and handed it to us. Auntie, you and Natalie are crying with your heads hugged like this. People who don't know will think that my father and I bullied you. Aunt Jo married Owen's father at the age of 40. She didn't have children in her life. She treats these children without blood relationship as her own. Owen has always respected her. I already knew these things. So all along, I don't understand why Owen would agree to this verbal engagement. After all, the whole thing has nothing to do with him. But Aunt Jo just let me rest assured, saying that I will naturally know the reason in the future. So I didn't ask any more. Aunt Jo laughed when she heard this, and then wiped my tears. Then she tightly held my hand. Natalie, come home with Auntie. I subconsciously looked at Owen. He was also looking at me. Behind was the lush greenery. When I looked over, there was a gentle smile in Owen's eyes. He also reached out his hand to me. Natalie, let's go home. There were still 20 minutes until 6 o'clock. Serena had already completed all her makeup and styling, but Grayson still hadn't come out of the lounge upstairs. Serena hesitated for a moment and then walked over. The door of the lounge was not locked. There were faint voices of conversation coming out. Serena quietly approached. Grayson, is Natalie definitely not coming back? If she was going to come back, she would have come back long ago. Even if she took a rocket now, she wouldn't be in time. Grayson, actually, I've wanted to ask you for a long time. Do you really have no feelings for Natalie at all? You two grew up together. She is beautiful and pure, and her eyes and heart are full of you. Serena subconsciously held her breath. There was silence inside the door for a long time. Grayson's voice slowly rang out. No feeling. Would you have feelings for a young girl? Grayson sneered. He is 5 years older than Natalie. When Natalie arrived at the Grayson family, she had just started elementary school. Even later, when Natalie grew up and became very beautiful. For some reason, Grayson thought of the night of her 18th birthday again. He must be bewitched. He was so dazed by her that he kissed her. And he also accepted that brooch. But Natalie is very beautiful now. Yes, several of my buddies are interested in her. Do you remember that horse race last year? Remember. She wore a set of red riding clothes and won the championship. I still remember the way she took off her hat and smiled brightly on the podium. Grayson naturally remembered. He also remembered that day. Natalie was extremely happy. She pulled him and chattered nonstop, showed off her trophy and pony to him, and then chattered on, saying that the award-presenting guest that day was so handsome. But she only thought of him in her heart and took a peek. Grayson's lips curved slightly. Both he and Natalie like horseback riding. Natalie's pony is still kept in the Grayson family's horse farm. Serena suddenly pushed open the door. Grayson. She was wearing a white pearl satin long dress. This dress is a replica of Mrs. Gu's engagement dress back then. Mrs. Gu came from an ordinary background. The beautiful marriage that came from Mr. Grayson's heroic rescue back then. Many people are still talking about it with relish to this day. Grayson's proudest thing in his life is that his parents have a deep love. Probably because of this. When he rescued Serena at the beginning, he had a different feeling for her. And now, Serena standing in front of him, just as gentle and beautiful as the mother in the old photo. Grayson's heart suddenly softened again. Even if he never thought of taking the step of engagement and marriage with Serena. But today, he will at least give her a perfect engagement ceremony. Grayson stood up and reached out his hand to Serena. Serena smiled softly, lifted her skirt and walked up to him. I was worried when I saw you didn't come downstairs for a long time. It's okay. Let's go over now. Is everything about Natalie handled? Yes. Grayson's gaze swept over the sapphire brooch on his chest. Natalie is naughty. You are gentle. From now on, let her stay in Hong Kong City and not come back. Serena's heart suddenly filled with joy. But on the surface, she still showed a worried look. will this be not so good? Natalie is used to being pampered. Won't she feel wronged being alone outside? Grayson's voice was faint. If she suffers a little, she will learn to be sensible. Serena didn't say more. Gently holding his arm, she went downstairs. It's 6 o'clock. Her engagement ceremony is about to begin. From today on, she will never live that poor life again. She will never live in a shabby house full of all kinds of people again. She will never have to squeeze in a small room with her 2 younger sisters again. Her family will all rise to prosperity with her. Grayson is the only opportunity given to her by God to cross classes. She will hold on to him tightly. Forever, she will never let go. My wedding with Owen is set half a month later. Time is very tight. But fortunately, the Owen family attaches great importance to the marriage of the eldest son and grandson. Preparation has begun many years in advance. So although it is busy, it is progressing smoothly. Aunt Jo told me. Owen had a serious illness when he was a child. After he recovered later, the Owen family took him to worship the White Dragon King. It is said that he must get married in September of his 27th year. His life will be smooth, healthy, and wealthy. The elders of the Owen family believe in these things very much. When Aunt Jo mentioned this marriage on the phone for the first time, the Owen family also calculated my 8 characters. My 8 characters and Owen's are compatible. It is a predestined relationship. So after I agreed to the marriage contract, everyone in the Owen family was extremely happy. I received many, many precious meeting gifts. Among them, the most meaningful one is a pair of jadeite bracelets left by Owen's biological mother. When Owen gave them to me, I was very touched but also sad and guilty. The most suitable gift I should give him in return is that brooch that my mother gave to my father, but now, it is still with Grayson. Perhaps seeing my low mood, Owen took me to the garden. Natalie, are you not happy? He looked at me worriedly. The bracelet on the wrist is condensed with a pool of green. Even if I don't know much about jewels, I also know that they are extremely valuable. I can't stand others being nice to me since I was a child. For every point they are nice to me, I wish to repay 10 points, 100 points. I thought through in my mind the gifts I could give Owen. I always feel that everything is not satisfactory. I already feel guilty and uncomfortable in my heart. Touching Owen's gentle eyes again, somehow. When I decided to completely let go of Grayson, I didn't cry. When I left Beijing where I had lived for 21 years, I didn't cry. When Grayson refused to return that brooch to me, I didn't cry either. But at this moment, my tears suddenly fell. Owen was obviously a little flustered. Although he is an out-and-out gentleman, a well-bred scion, but obviously he has little experience in coaxing girls. When he helped me wipe away tears with a handkerchief, he was obviously a bit clumsy. I shed tears and laughed. Owen, you wiped off my makeup. Did you put on makeup? It's so obvious. Can't you see it? Owen said very seriously, I thought you were naturally beautiful like this. I admit that sometimes I am really vain and shallow. I was coaxed and became happy like this. Owen, you are so good at coaxing girls. Have you had many girlfriends? Does it count from kindergarten? My eyes widened instantly. Didn't you date after you grew up? If I say no, it must be a lie. When I was in college abroad, I had a girlfriend. After we were together, we found that we were not suitable for each other, so we broke up peacefully. Have you had someone you liked later? Owen paused for several seconds. Yes. Just unfortunately, she doesn't like me. I vaguely understood something in my heart. So that's it. Perhaps it's just because the person he loves loves someone else. That's why he has closed his heart and love since then and agreed to this marriage contract. Somehow, a faint sourness suddenly surged in my heart. But soon, I comforted myself again. That's good. At least I won't feel too guilty in my heart. When I left the Owen family that day, Owen said to me, Natalie, I hope you see me as your future husband from the bottom of your heart. I know you are always independent and excellent. But occasional dependence will also make me very happy. I feel that my heart seems to have opened up a little bit. Owen, I will. I still gave Owen a pair of cufflinks and tie clips first. Not particularly expensive. But it was designed by me on a whim before. This gift is very clean. Because when it was designed at the beginning, it was not intended to be given to Grayson. I just missed my parents. Turned every bit of missing into every line under the pencil. My wedding began to be prepared in full swing. But the Owen family has never made public who the bride is. I just came to a new school and don't want to be high profile. Also, the matter between me and Grayson has not been completely resolved. When Grayson asked me to come to Hong Kong City to continue my studies, probably he had made up his mind and didn't want me to go back to Beijing. So when the servants at home packed my luggage in advance, almost all my daily necessities were packed and sent to Hong Kong City. Including all the gifts Grayson gave me in the past 10 years. Among them is a particularly expensive pink diamond ring. Grayson gave it to me on my 18th birthday. Also, I once cherished it like a treasure. Before, every time I was sad, when I saw this ring, I would immediately be happy. Because a gift like a ring always has an extra meaning compared to other ornaments. But now, I have gradually understood. When a person doesn't like you, or when his affection for you is not pure, even if there is a marriage contract between you, it's just like air, not to mention these external things. When I sorted out Grayson's gifts one by one, my heart was surprisingly calm without any ripples. In the end, the jewelry box was empty, but my heart was unprecedentedly relaxed. When I was packing and preparing to send it out, several WeChat messages suddenly came in on my phone. But it was sent by the staff at the horse farm. My pony is sick. It is listless all day and refuses to eat fodder. When I saw the photo, my eyes instantly turned red. The staff said that the pony should be missing me, because I would go to see it every few days. But this time, I didn't go on time. I hurriedly called to ask. Miss Natalie, Mr. Grayson is here too. Let him talk to you. I was stunned for a moment, and Grayson's voice came clearly. Natalie, did you forget what you said when you raised this pony? Of course I didn't forget. The children of the Grayson family all have their own small pets. But the only requirement is that once you choose a pet, you must be responsible to the end and take good care of it. You must never abandon it halfway. But, wasn't it you who decided that I should come to Hong Kong City to continue my studies half a year ago? Natalie. Grayson suddenly sneered. When have you ever been obedient? Didn't you love to make a fuss and be noisy since you were a child? Mom and Dad love you so much. If you shed a tear, they will be reluctant to let you go. After all, you don't really care about your pony that much. At that moment, Grayson's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He seemed to suddenly hear his own subtext. Natalie, in fact, doesn't really care about him that much. Otherwise, she wouldn't really go to Hong Kong City. She wouldn't be indifferent when she knew he was engaged. She wouldn't really not show up on the day of the engagement ceremony. She wouldn't take back the brooch she gave away. I will find time to go back and see it. If possible, I can also bring it to Hong Kong City. Are you planning never to go back to Beijing? Suddenly, anger was tinged in Grayson's voice, but I lowered my head and smiled. It's not impossible. Yes, I am going to marry in Hong Kong City. Naturally, the focus of my life will shift here in the future, but there is no need to tell Grayson about these. Natalie, you are still so naughty and childish. You haven't made any progress at all. Grayson's voice became colder and colder. You'd better not regret it, Natalie. Regret what? Serena and I are engaged. The wedding date is being finalized. And then? Natalie, don't tell me you don't understand. If I really marry Serena, you... I smiled with relief and lightness. Brother Grayson, I will sincerely bless you. Really. On the other end of the phone, Grayson suddenly fell silent. And I didn't wait for him to say anything else and gently hung up the phone. At the age of 16, a girl's first love blossomed. Since then, it has been unstoppable. I am stubborn and refuse to call him brother again. Now nearly 6 years have passed in a flash. He finally returned to the initial and most correct position. I don't hate him or blame him. After being together day and night for so many years, I sincerely bless him. I called Grayson's father. After greeting him and Grayson's mother, only then did I tactfully mention the matter of that brooch. Uncle Grayson, I was young and ignorant before and made a lot of jokes. Now when I think about it, I always feel regret and shame. Since Brother Grayson is already engaged, I think it's better not to cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. Grayson's father sighed on the phone. Natalie, Uncle has always liked you very much and loves you very much. In fact, I have always wanted you to be my daughter-in-law. Your aunt will shed tears when she talks about you these days. I also feel very sad in my heart. But this sadness is only because of the sincere love of the two elders for me. Uncle, emotional matters cannot be forced. You have been wronged, Natalie. I'm not wronged, Uncle. I have figured it out and let it go. Uncle will help you get back that brooch. In a few days, your aunt and I will go to Hong Kong City to attend a wedding. At that time, I will personally give you the brooch. I thanked him and hung up the phone. The staff handling the consignment of valuables also arrived at this time. The packed gift box was moved onto the truck by the staff. Soon, it will be safely delivered to Grayson. In a few days, Grayson's father and others will come to Hong Kong City. When the sapphire brooch is returned to me, those youthful absurdities come to a complete end here. Grayson got drunk again at a friend's gathering. When he came out of the restroom, he was just hearing Cherry on the phone. Baby, I will leave for Hong Kong City tomorrow. We agreed that I am your only bridesmaid. Yes, is the best man carefully selected by you? Ah? You chose 7 best men to accompany me? Oh my God, Natalie. I love you so much, baby. Grayson stood in the long and empty corridor. Cherry's joyful voice seemed to still echo in his ears. But in the end, only that Natalie was left. He thought he was really drunk. Otherwise, how could he hear such a ridiculous joke? Yes, he is really drunk. So, he had auditory hallucinations. Or maybe, he just misses Natalie. That's why he mistook someone else's name for Natalie's. Grayson suddenly staggered over. Cherry. Cherry, who had just ended the call, was greatly startled. Grayson. Who were you talking to on the phone just now? I heard that you are going to Hong Kong City to attend a wedding, and I also heard Natalie's name. His handsome face showed a slight distortion at this time. And those eyes that are always romantic and affectionate are now bloodshot. He smiled, but that smile was cold and ferocious. Don't tell me that you are going to attend Natalie's wedding. Cherry was initially frightened by his appearance. But at this time, she has already reacted. It's really a turn of events. How much anger and tears has she shed because of Natalie over the years? At this time, she is extremely happy in her heart. Does the eldest young master of the Grayson family have such a day? He doesn't like to play with other people's sincerity. Doesn't he like to watch those who like him be swayed by gains and losses for him? This taste, presumably he will have countless opportunities to taste it in the future. But Cherry won't tell him the truth. If Natalie doesn't let her say it, she won't say it. She won't be so stupid as to let Grayson know and run to Hong Kong City to make a big fuss and disrupt. That is the happiest day of her dearest friend's life. She will never let this unlucky scumbag destroy it. You heard wrong. I am going to Hong Kong City to attend a wedding. And I will go with Natalie. It's just that our former classmate is getting married. Ever since I started dating Jace, I imagined us sitting on the snowy mountain together, waiting for the meteor shower to pass. Okay, Sophia, let's go to Mount Songbei to watch the meteor shower. Have you cared about her, considered her feelings, and put yourself in her shoes and thought about her? Grayson, you didn't at all. You don't know how good our Natalie is at all. You don't deserve her love for so many years at all. After Cherry finished speaking, she turned and left. And Grayson looked at her receding figure. His heart suddenly ached faintly. But he didn't know why he was uncomfortable. He just suddenly and extremely urgently wanted to see Natalie, even if it's just for a glance. But on the second day, Grayson received a large box of express deliveries shipped from Hong Kong City. And the reason why he received it so quickly, it was because Owen asked the freight company of the Owen family to specially arrange a special plane to send it to Beijing. At that time, I was busy with the last rehearsal before the wedding and was nervously and excitedly rehearsing. I didn't know all this. When Grayson opened those boxes, somehow his hands were shaking. At first, the things inside were a little unfamiliar, but gradually, overwhelming memories came surging like a tide. The first Hermes bag he gave Natalie, the first pearl necklace he gave her, the key to the first car. Colorful gems filled a whole box. In the end, it was that pink diamond ring. Grayson held that small pink box. Suddenly his vision blurred. Grayson, when are you going to marry your little child bride? At that time, friends often teased him and Natalie like this with a smile. He was young, rebellious, arrogant and conceited. There were so many girls chasing him, but he didn't like any of them. 18-year-old Natalie is beautiful and delicate, as lovely as a peach. He took her out to play, which made many people envy. He was secretly extremely proud. Because such a beautiful Natalie only likes him. At that time, he wanted to marry her. To be exact, a long time ago, he knew that he would marry her in the future. So he gave her that pink diamond ring. But when did he gradually get tired of Natalie? And when did the person who suddenly appeared defeat the childhood sweetheart? Is all this because he really has no affection for her at all? Or is it just because he is certain that she will never leave him? Grayson tightly held this ring and suddenly shed absurd tears. At that time, I was busy with the last rehearsal before the wedding. Naturally, I didn't know what was Grayson's reaction when he saw the gifts, big and small, from the past 10 years, especially that pink diamond ring that I cherished like a treasure. And in the middle of the rehearsal, when Owen kissed me for the first time, I didn't know either who Grayson would because of that ring. Slapped Serena hard. How ridiculous. On that day when Serena knelt down and framed me. When I was pushed away by Grayson and hurt my knee. None of us thought. There will be such a day, right? But Grayson and Serena, they are already irrelevant people in my life. I don't care at all. When Grayson's father brought me the brooch, I also told the two elders the good news of my upcoming marriage. They were all very surprised. Because the wedding they came to Hong Kong to attend this time is precisely the one held by the Owen family for the eldest son and grandson to marry a wife. It turns out to be me. They are happy for me, but they also shed tears and regret. Especially Grayson's mother. She held my hand and refused to let go. Natalie, Aunt doesn't want to shed tears on your happy day, but I am really unwilling. It's my fault. I didn't educate my own son well. So that he made one wrong step after another. Grayson wants to break up with Serena. But Serena insists on not agreeing. Serena's whole family also runs to the Grayson family to make a fuss. They even threaten to stay and not leave. Anyway, they have nothing to lose and are not afraid of those who have something to lose. When the two of them are making a huge commotion. Coincidentally, Serena is found to be pregnant at this time. The Grayson family can't do the thing of making the girl have an abortion. Their marriage is likely to be finalized. Lying in Grayson's mother's arms, I also have red eyes. Thinking of when I first went to the Grayson family and cried for my parents every night. The scenes of Grayson's mother holding me and coaxing me. Thinking of those carefree days. The time when they loved me like their own daughter. In the end, I still shed tears. Natalie, it's our Grayson who doesn't have good fortune. Grayson's mother wiped away my tears. She sighed but was extremely gratified. The family style of the Owen family is famously good. And that Owen is also an outstanding figure among the new generation in Hong Kong City. Natalie, you will definitely be happy. I know that a man as gentle and refined as Owen. Even if he doesn't love me, my married life will also be very happy. But I never expected. Happiness is several times stronger than I expected. When I put on that sapphire brooch for Owen, he showed me a photo. In the photo, I am holding the trophy and smiling with curved eyebrows and eyes, bright and dazzling in a certain direction off the stage. And Owen is standing beside me, looking at me with a smile. At that horse racing event that year, when I won the championship, the person presenting the award to me was precisely Owen. But at that time, my eyes and heart were full of Grayson. I just took a quick glance at him. I only knew that he was an extremely young and handsome man. How could I have thought that there would be such a fate later? I cried and laughed, pointing at the two of us in the photo like a child. But I couldn't say a word. Owen hugged me from behind. Remember when I said that I had someone I liked before? He touched the brooch and put his chin on the side of my neck and rubbed it gently. Natalie, I said to myself in my heart. When I receive that sapphire brooch, I will tell you. The person I like is you. When I was a girl, I loved reading romance novels very much. There is a very commonly used word to describe the male lead, beast in human clothing. In fact, it is a compliment in disguise. But I didn't expect that a man like Owen also has a beastly side. On the wedding day, he had handsome eyebrows and refined eyes, and was tall and straight. His whole demeanor was extraordinary, just like snow on a high mountain. But when it came to the wedding night, taking off the groom's clothes, he also became a beast. For the first time, I heard so many embarrassing love words. For the first time, I was called BB over and over again in Cantonese. For the first time, I cried when I was uncomfortable, and also cried when I was comfortable. For the first time, I knew about love affairs, tasted happiness, was absurd all night, and didn't feel tired. And on the second day after becoming a bride, I slept until noon. While I was still sleeping soundly in bed, Owen had already completed his morning run, daily exercise, morning tea, reading the newspaper, listening to the news, and so on with full energy. Several days after the wedding, the servants at home only then told me with a smile, "Madam, you don't know how much Mr. Owen loved to smile that day." Yes, in all these years since I came to the Owen family, it's the first time I've seen Mr. Owen say so many words in one morning. He greeted everyone he met. Even my little grandson was not spared. I think Mr. would like to carry a big loudspeaker with him everywhere, so as to tell people all over the world that he is married and he loves his bride so much. I was both shy and amused. I found an excuse and quickly hid in the garden. From afar, I saw Owen's car driving into the gate. He got out of the car. After handing his briefcase and coat to the servant, he looked over here at the first time. Owen. I stood in the flowers, smiling and waving at him. My pony was sent to Hong Kong City yesterday. It was Owen who took care of this matter personally. It was taken care of very well along the way and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. When I saw it yesterday, it happily circled around me. Owen looked at me and smiled, and then he smiled too. He pushed aside the lush green plants in front of him and walked towards me. And when he walked towards me, I had already run to his side first. He stopped in place, shaking his head helplessly. But he had already opened his arms. When I threw myself into his arms, he hugged me tightly.